Come on, let's give God a hand praise. just another wonderful day. What's the weather supposed to be like today?
I don't think it's supposed to rain.
Well, I hope no rain, but I'm saying, what's the temperature supposed to be like? Is it like 60s or 70s? Because it's so hot up in here. Jesus, man, I didn't know it was getting colder in here. It was like, Jesus, man, I thought it was supposed to be getting warmer. We supposed to be cutting back on the gas bill. But it's all good. It's all good. We just don't want you to say that you came to church and you were cold. So we'll make sure everybody's okay. So how's everybody's week been going? Good. Brother Henry, we were just about to talk about you. Ask about how you were doing and everything. Well, because you know, Sister King hadn't seen you in a couple of Sundays, so she wanted to know how you were doing. So we just knew it wasn't like you to be gone too long, so we just wanted to make sure you're okay. Yeah, just asked about you.
My eyes swollen, easy sunny, and I can see.
Okay.
And, my eyes have very strong. Thank you.
Yeah, we certainly hadn't seriously. We're asking about you because we knew you don't miss too many Sundays in a row.
Yeah.
So we're glad to hear you're okay, and certainly praying for your health and strength. Are there any birthdays this month that we overlooked as we are in the month of April here? Any birthdays or anniversaries that we haven't talked about? I know anybody hear you? Oh, well, hey, belated happy birthday. My son's coming up. He don't want to say nothing, but his is on the 27th of April. Is he getting older now?
Yeah, man.
That's what I say. That's a good thing, getting older.
My grandson's the second.
Okay. Amen.
He said
3.
that's what he said.
Okay. 3 thinking he's 6.
I'm thinking that for real.
I'm serious. I'm serious, man. Donnell's son, he talks so well. It's amazing how well he talks, and I credit the son. He gives him the learning toys and always saying stuff with him. But all of the toys at my house he can pick up, and he be like dinosaur, airplane. He's actually starting to separate airplane from the helicopter. Because I get a little black, so I'll be like the airplane, helicopter, dinosaur. He definitely know cars and all that stuff. And we also discovered he's the adventurous type too, because he's not afraid of anything. So he likes animals. And I told him, I tease my son because he's always me. We need a farm. I'm like, your son making it seem like you for real. We do need a farm because he just loves everything. When he was at the house, he was staring at the ants. Most kids run away from him. He pointing at them and then start running the car across them. I say, Lord, I gotta watch you. You about to be a hit and run person out there. But no, it's just amazing to me though how smart our young kids are when you equip them and open the doors up and get them stuff to just open their imagination. You gotta open their mind up, and the more you expose to them, the more they're learning it down. Because they are, just these kids nowadays, they're just so smart. And so I think it's a waste of being as smart as they are if we don't channel that energy and that knowledge in the right direction. Because this is more of a season now than ever. Then our young people need to take charge. They are the future, what's coming up. And we want to get some of the politicians you don't like in office, then we got to have our kids ready to take those positions in 20 years and 25 years and let them know that there's other things to do out there in life. And so make changes happen. I tell you something I was reading the other day. It's a university up in Michigan. I forgot, Lake something, Michigan. They're offering scholarships to students who wants to go into the field of learning about cannabis. So if you're interested in taking up a field in cannabis chemistry, then they're paying for it. I'm just letting people know. Let me look at my son laughing. I'm just saying. No, I read it though. Seriously, I was like, wow, that's interesting. But they paying for it. I guess it's the wave. It's the new, it's the new thing that's out now, and every state almost is accepting it and adopting it. And all these pro athletes and superstars, they own farms and making all the big money off of it. Go ahead, Brother Henry.
Yeah, it's in what you say. I did my master's degree on marijuana, but then I had to stop it because it wasn't legal.
It wasn't legal at the time.
Yeah. It was legal, and Dean of he told me I
could pursue it.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't legal then.
Yeah.
So,
No.
Yeah.
Then I became a landscape architect.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah, see? I told you, man, bro. Every man got a background.
He was in the army and the landscape architect.
Yeah.
You do a lot.
He was a lieutenant in the army.
You do a lot.
He was a lieutenant in the army. Yeah, brother. Hey, I try to tell y'all, man. You told her talking with Brother Henry, man. That's why I was laughing. We able to laugh at it and joke together because I know, really how smart the fella is and all the stuff he done. Because we've always talked about different things. And when he first told me he was a lieutenant in the army, I said, oh, Jesus, I'm glad I wasn't under you. Straight up, man. Because I don't know, man. You probably been fighting, man. You be, because you be telling people to do some stuff, man. Because you using your rank. I can see you, man. A black man, a lieutenant in the military. Oh, man, I ain't fooling with you.
I was only lieutenant for a month. Then I lateral transfer to Federal Grain Inspection Service.
Okay. Yeah. See, so. Y'all ain't remember me wrong. He working on number 5. Any other announcements? Again, it's good to see each of you this morning. Certainly happy to see. I told Greta when she coming in, I seen it, and I said, "Oh, your cat must have put you out today." Yeah, finally came up, but I knew mother was talking about coming yesterday when I talked with her. But as they were saying that, I guess Maria wasn't feeling too well this morning, and so again, we keep her lifted up in prayer. I did call Mother Woods. I missed her, but I left her a message that we called and was checking on her, and they're doing well. Checked on Mother Brown them, so they were doing. Everybody's doing fine. She got some appointments next week, so trying to make sure I got a lot of stuff off my head now with getting my house done. So I've been putting some stuff on my calendar to make sure I kind of get back on track with checking in and making sure everybody's okay. Yes, Sister Hill. Oh yeah, and Sister Carr. Well, go ahead. You tell him because she lost a brother.
I don't know exactly when she had lost this other brother. She was a Memphis last week. She had a brother that passed away in somewhere in Louisville, I think, Kentucky. He was a pastor of this church.
Okay.
And now her oldest daughter is in bad shape.
Oh, wow. We certainly got to keep her lifted up in prayer. Certainly, it's that family today can easily be you or our family tomorrow. And, I remember just for a brief season almost, the Turner family had kind of experienced that same thing, right after another, from sister, so we just got to keep praying for one another. We're getting older, and, the old song says, this is not our home, and God is taking us away one by one, day by day. And so while we're here, we got to stay prayed up and do the right thing, treat each other right, and be a blessing to one another, because we never know what day or time it's going to be our season. Amen? Amen. Any other announcements? Any other things we forgot? All right, we let the choir come. Small as they are, let's give them a hand, a big hand, and encourage them. Give us a couple of songs, whatever they want to do. We'll come back and do the offering and then get into the word. What you're going through. I mean, no, God is able to do anything but fail. I'm going to go to Psalms 32. Hoping I ain't missing out of this Bible. Yeah, I sure wasn't missing. Psalms 32. Psalms 32, verse 1, it says, Blessed
whose sin is covered.
Bless it.
If the man to whom the Lord has put it not iniquity, and whose spirit there no God.
Just for a brief moment, I want to talk about when guilt is gone. And when guilt is gone, how do you handle it? How do you handle situations in life that keep coming up that causes one to want to throw in the towel? And the songwriter David said, there's a vast difference between being declared guilty of some crime and actually experiencing guilt. And one of those devastating enemies of the mental health and happiness is that of a guilty feeling. Don't know about you, but whether real or imaginary, when God created man in the beginning, it was his intention that man be a whole person, fulfilling the highest divine plan for his being. But man sinned. He deliberately transgressed the law God has set down for each of us. The results of this violation was that the net of guilt fell down around man, encompassing him and imprisoning him. Immediately, a yearning of separation exists between man and God. However, in spite of man's seemingly hopelessness and his desperate desire, God did not vacate his creation. When Adam and Eve sinned, they ran and hid themselves from God. The beauty of that tragedy lies in the fact that God came searching and calling for them. How many know that oftentimes, even when we mess up, God still looks for us? God is still trying to fix us up. And so I had never really looked at it that way, that even in the midst of them sinning, and even in the midst of them saying we were embarrassed, we were ashamed because we were naked, and they ran to hide themselves, and God is saying, where you? God was searching for them in the cool of the evening. How many know in the midst of your troubles, in the midst of your sin, God is still trying to make a way out of no way for you? And I'm saying trying because God is able to make a way, but sometimes we get in the way and keep blocking it from happening. And so God is trying to remind us that even in the midst of your sin, I'm still with you. I'm still beside you. I want you to be mindful that there's no sin that God can't forgive. And so we have to realize that even in the midst of our struggle, and even in the midst of our circumstances, God is still with us. And so what that tells me, that not only did God go looking for them, thus as it has been from the beginning, God initiated or reestablished communion between God and his people. Why? Because God says, I have created you, and I created you in the likeness of me. And although man, blinded by his sin and imprisoned in his guilt, could never have restored the communication line between himself and God, Psalms 32 is the first of 13 songs of instructions containing divine insight into the condition of humanity. Psalms 32 also takes place right beside Psalms 51, in which David, a heartbroken king, bears his soul before God in confession of his humiliating sins and receive forgiveness and restoration. How many know God can restore you? There are echoes of Psalms 51 and Psalms 32. David is talking about the time when he made an about-face in the relationship with God. Has anybody ever had to do that from time to time, doing about face? What I mean by that is sometimes you found yourself distant from God, even though you grew up with God. And yet you find yourself not in the company of God like you should be. And somewhere along the line, something has to happen. Something has to kick in to make you realize you're drifting away from God instead of closer to God. And as a result, you have to do an about face and say, I'm coming back to you, Lord. Anybody ever had to do an about face? Well, maybe if you can't even think about it being to God. Have you ever just had to do an about face coming up into your doctor's office or going somewhere that you said, I wasn't going back, but you found yourself, didn't have a choice but to go back. Well, let me remind y'all of an old story that Mother Brown reminded me of yesterday. We were talking, and I don't know how we got on the church and whatnot. And she said, well, she said, how long you been there? And I said, well, this is 15 years passing, but close to 20 years actually being in the church. And she said, yeah, and I remember when you got mad one time and left. And I said, yeah, and Sister Bell made me go back. And I said, because I had to swallow pride. And I told her. She said, I didn't know that. I said, yes. What happened was I got mad. I did get mad. I got mad at Pastor Turner and Deacon Cameron because of Sunday school and the way we were doing stuff. And I got mad, and I went home and I told Sister Bell. And Sister Bell said, I don't care how bad you got. You said God sent you to that church. You need to go back to the church. And I had to walk my butt back up in here with my head hanging down, but it was up high, but inside it was down. I said, oh Lord, I got to go face these folks. But God says, guess what? You got to learn how to forgive yourself. If I can forgive you, then guess what? Don't worry about the people around you. But when guilt sets in sometimes, it keeps you and hindering you from giving yourself and looking saying, hey, I made a mistake. But sometimes the guilt can weigh so heavy on you that you can't look beyond that anymore. And you're stuck in a cycle of loneliness. You're stuck in a cycle of feeling down and depressed. But I want to remind you, whatever God's got for you, the devil in hell can't take it away from you. So you got to shake off guilt. And so I was reminded yesterday, and I said, you're right. I do remember that. And we talked about it and laughed about it. And she said, but God knew what he was doing. I said, well, God does know what he was doing. At the time, I just didn't know what I was doing. And if we're not honest enough to be honest with ourselves, then sometimes you can miss out on your blessing. Because you so concentrated and so focused on you that you forget about what God is doing. And that's when you get in trouble, when you forget that God is the one who's really in control. See, I've been reminded of many times, and I keep this thought in the back of my mind. As pastors over the years, from time to time, will go from church to church because oftentimes they're looking for a larger congregation, a bigger payday. And I was reminded a long time ago that even the smallest of churches still need somebody to minister to them. Because God has people in small churches just like he has people in large congregations. And so don't allow the number of people in your congregation to determine if God is using you or not. Because God can use you with 5 people just like he used somebody else with 500 people. Because the 5 people still got to be ministered to. And they may not want to go to a church with 500 people. They're comfortable in the surroundings of a smaller congregation. And so you can't always get mad and say, I don't see it going the way I think it should go. If we take God out of the picture, it would never go anywhere anyway. So as long as God is in the mix, how many know the doors still stay open? The lights still stay on. The gas is still burning and we still getting hot up in here. And I don't care how many years go by, how many times we've had tax problems. God has always made a way out of no way. And we're still here in spite of everything. And don't you know in 2020 and 21, some churches won't come out of the pandemic. But we're still here. Anybody can declare the word? Because we allow God to use us and not allow guilt to set in and say, hey, I am a follower of Jesus, and I will not allow myself to get guilty to the point that I don't come to church. I don't go and worship because, it ain't nobody there right now. But keep coming back and watch how God begins to restore and renew. What happens when guilt is gone? Well, when guilt is gone, first of all, you can free your mind. It's hard to think when it's always clouded. See, some of us, it has to hit us at different levels. And, and sometimes we don't even know the burdens that's on us. We don't know the weight that's really on us until it's a breakthrough. And that's one of the things that as I was talking about Brown, I said, I feel so good lately. And she said, why is that? I said, because I'm finally getting some stuff done around here that was starting to weigh on me that I didn't really realize it was weighing on me. It was probably always in the back of my mind. Okay, how I'm gonna get this roof? How I'm gonna get this? How I'm gonna get that? And then you started getting more problems from that, leaks here and there. You saying, man, this has got to be taken care of. And when you call around and they scare you with all these big old high budget, you be like, Jesus, man, how can I ever come up with this amount of money? And you start worrying without knowing that you're worrying about stuff because you're still thinking about other things and don't realize what's all piled up on your plate. Well, I mean, you don't believe me. Anybody ever went to Lambert's out there where they just throw the rolls at you? Okay. Well, if you ever been there before, then let me give you this picture. When you sit down at the table, before you get your plate, and all you got is some napkins there, they come around and slop stuff on the napkins. Once you get your plate, they come back and slop more stuff on there. And so before you know it, if you keep sampling everything, you got more food and samples than you actually had on your plate to eat. And before you know, you're taking a doggy box of your food home because you done sat there and ate all the potatoes they got. You done ate up their molasses syrup and all that. You done got rolls through at you 100 times. Even though you didn't want the rolls, you just the thrill of catching them and watching them fly across the room. And so as a result, stuff started to pile up on your plate and you look down and say, whoa, what have I got here? This is a way too much for me to handle right now. And so as a result, you pick your way around it. Eat what you can, and you save the rest for later. Now, here's the real kicker to this here. You save the rest for later, but how much of it do you really eat? Yeah, the average person. Because, see, I discovered there's some food I just don't care for leftover. I've been taught tricks, Sister Morgan told me one time, when you have a piece of fish and you want to warm it up, put it in a cast iron skillet, put something on top of it flat, and it'll heat it up nice and crispy. It ain't work for me. It may work, but it just ain't work for me. And you can't microwave catfish. You can't microwave chicken. And even when you put it back in the oven, it still ain't the same. So some foods just don't taste the same. And cold chicken really has a smell to it. So it's your preference. And so as a result, I found myself taking these doggy plates home, and at the time not having a dog to give it to because after a moment I don't even want it. Well, here's what I'm getting at. If you're not careful, so much stuff gets bombarded on your plate to the point that you forget what was the real food and what was all the snacks and add-ons. If you're not careful, so much stuff gets added on to your life and so many burdens get piled up on your shoulder that you forget what the real situation is. And if you're not careful, you get surrounded by so many sub-problems that you forget what your main situation is. And so as a result, you start feeling guilty about stuff that you really shouldn't feel guilty about. But when guilt is gone, the mind is free. When guilt is gone, you can begin to breathe again. Can anybody breathe this morning? See, when you feel good about life, how many know you can enjoy life? But if you don't feel good about it, you can't enjoy it because all the time you're sitting around complaining about something. It's your leg, it's your foot, it's your ankle. But how many know you can hop yourself down to the old beach? You can hop yourself to the park and sit on a bench. You can have fun in spite of all the stuff you're talking about. But as long as you're sitting around feeling guilty about your situation, feeling guilty about the stuff you don't have, then guess what? You will never have it or be happy. Let me show you last thing in here. David in verse 1 and 2, he starts out and says, he used something that most of us should be familiar with from the Beatitude because he said, blessed. He starts out saying, blessed. I know I got some issues. I know I got some situation. But he said, blessed is he whom transgressions is forgiven. In other words, it's a blessing when God forgive you. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Okay. Blessed is the man unto whom the Lord imputed not iniquities. How many know it's a blessing when God is not tempting you or allowing you to be tempted? It's a blessing. He says blessed. In other words, I understand that what God is doing for me is a blessing. Does anybody realize you blessed this morning? Just to be here. Brother Henry said he's having problems with his eyes, but to be able to see and drive this morning says I'm blessed. May not be rich, may not have a whole lot of money, don't have a mansion, but I'm blessed. And anybody can say I'm blessed in spite of my circumstances, in spite of And because I'm blessed, I can't allow myself to be stressed by guilt. When guilt is gone, you can keep living. Don't you know guilt has caused a lot of people to die early? From stress, from other things. Anybody familiar with, you may not listen to rap, but you old enough, and you done seen enough movies, so you know DMX. And to hear about his tragic life ending. And I say tragic because I've been one, have watched him over the years, liked him here and there, but I always said he's troubled. Because you have so much going on for you, and yet you find yourself always in trouble. And if we're not careful, sometimes we're still trying to live out where we come from instead of where God has taken us to. If God has brought you out of the hood, as you call it, then why keep trying to live like you're poor? If God has blessed you, then you don't have to be robbing and stealing. You can't try to live everything you read about or see other people do. The reason most folks say they want to make it out of the neighborhood is to change and make a difference in life. And so if you're trying to make a difference in life, then you can't keep going back to where you were. But one of the interesting things I've heard that he made a statement about is that he didn't feel like his life had any purpose. See, that's what's wrong when guilt kicks in. It kicks in to the point because you done made some mistakes, that you don't feel like you have a purpose in life, and you fail to realize that people's lives you have touched. Because believe it or not, even as a rapper, he has touched some people's lives. He has touched some people's careers and helping them to mold and get their style. He has been in a lot of movies. So he has touched some folks' lives, but yet somewhere along the line, guilt kicked in to the point that he didn't feel like his life was worth continuing. Guilt can take you out of here. But when you're free of guilt, your mind is free. Your heart is free. You can't walk around always feeling guilty about things that happened in the past, about mistakes you made, or about stuff that you wish you would have done. Careers you wish you would have followed. Jobs you wish you would have taken. At this point in life, be happy you're still alive. Be happy you got the activities of your limbs. Be happy you can still smile or frown if that's what you choose to do. Be happy. But one thing, don't live a life full of guilt. Because guilt would drain you. Guilt will make you feel like you don't know how to come out of it. But I'm here to declare today, when guilt is gone, the mind is free. When guilt is gone, the heart feels better. When guilt is gone, you can enjoy yourself better. It's hard to enjoy a good steak dinner when you're still sitting there feeling guilty about something you've done or said. But when guilt is gone, how many know you can watch a TV show and smile? You can still laugh at stuff when you're not sitting around with your brain hurting all the time. Let it go. That's the key. Let it go. Tell your spirit, I got out. I got out of whatever it was that was weighing me down. I got out of whatever it was that was hindering me from being happy. I got out. Because let me leave you with this last word. Between my son and this young lady, they're the youngest people in the sanctuary. The rest of us are pushing 60, 70, and maybe even closer to 80. I was just trying to compliment you, be nice to you. But all of us are just getting a little older. What I'm simply saying is, on our wellest day, we're sick enough to die. But the biggest thing that all of us should remember, seriously, if you're already 60 years old, you have lived more life than you have left. You may not want to agree with it, you may not want to see it that way, but if you're 60, 9 or 10, and I'm praying for you, but you're probably not going to make 120. And I'm praying for you. I want to be right there with you.
You
No, man, you're right. I said I was among the youngest in here. I did say that, among the youngest. Man, you know what? I ain't thinking about you. But you know, since you brought that up, what I did find out, we can go home here. What I did find out, thinking of that, Brother Henry,